Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the final round, the last dance. We're here at Italy, the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza for round 8 of the Euroformula Open Championship. It's been a weekend already filled with mixed conditions, free practice and private tests, all afflicted with coasts of rain, but also, on the other hand, a few dry spells here and there. In terms of free practice, the fastest driver so far, Jose Garfias, with a 1:43.444, as the Mexican stuck it on top spot in free practice too. But this is what's important, it's qualifying. But before we get into that, we've got to applaud the Floridian Brad Benavides, your Euroformula Open champion, coming into this final round. So a great way for him to sign off in style as he bids an end to the Euroformula Open Championship and also an end to the Dallara 320 chassis. Historic weekend as well for Fernando Barrichello. His very own father races also this weekend in the International GT Open for Il Baroni Rampante, a team he represented in F3000 many years ago during the start of his single-seater career. So very much paying homage to his roots here at Monza this weekend. George Morgan here at the commentary box, alongside me, Chris Stevens.
Hello, George. And yes, the final qualifying session for this Dallara 320 chassis, and indeed the Spice engine that powers it as well, before we move over to the new Tom's prepared Toyota engine. And sadly, it looks like problems already for Jose Garfias, the man who was fastest in the dry practice session yesterday. Motorpark mechanics trying to get that car, well, it almost looked like they were trying to give it a bump start in the pit lane.
Not an ideal way to get started for Jose Garfias. He's going to have to come back out later on, obviously, hopefully, if they can get the car running at the very least. But we'll wait and see. As you can see, the timer is now ticking, and Brad Benavides leading this train of cars down through towards the famed Curva Alboreto, as it's now been recently named, as opposed to the Parabolica as it was.
I will never subscribe to that, George, ever. It's always Parabolica to me.
Well, there's one of the Hockenheim ring as well. You know a bit about that, obviously commentating over there for round 2 of the championship. But we did briefly take a look at Yevon David there as well, making his debut this weekend in the Euroformula Open Championship, moving in from Spanish F4. This is his very first time getting into the Dallara 320. A little bit different from previous machinery he would have driven, but a grand talent, and Motorpark placed this kid in high esteem.
They really do. He had a test, I think it was here in August, but those were his only miles under the car before coming here this weekend. And of course, having to get used to the Pirelli tyres as well. It's his first year of single-seater racing for the Sri Lankan 17-year-old. And he started out in F4 UAE earlier in the year on the GT tyres, and then obviously in F4 Spain, it's the Hancooks they use there. So having to get used to that Pirelli rubber on top of an entirely new car. It's a huge step up from F4 into this car. And so we wait with bated breath to see how Yevon David will perform this weekend. But as you say, Motorpark seem to think he's got something really special. And we may even see him on the grid next year in the new 324.
Yeah, and obviously he could yet be joining the likes of maybe Ed Pearson, who isn't unfortunately with us here this weekend, but he, of course, has taken part in recent rounds. Maybe we will see him debut for a full campaign next year with Motorpark. Also, the likes of Jose Garfias, still unconfirmed as to where the lineups are going to be. But if that's the trio, a very exciting trio, that is indeed, as we watch the cars come out of the Ascari chicane.
Yeah, Ed Pearson not here because we have the very welcome return of Jakob Bergmeister, the 18-year-old German, has sorted out his sponsorship issues to get at least this final round of the season in. Of course, we haven't seen him for a couple of rounds now, but really good to see Bergmeister back. And look how much they've trimmed out the rear wing on these cars as Brad Benavides sets the first flying lap of the session. It's only in the 48, so we still have quite a way to go before we are challenging the time that Garfias set in the dry session yesterday. Benavides was the fastest man in the wet session yesterday morning, and that was some 11 seconds slower than what Garfias was managed to put in the second session. And so building up to these push laps, now they've done one flying lap to build up the temperature in the Pirellis, and it is a tad chilly out there this morning, it must be said. What was the track temperature? Around 16, 17 degrees and 97% humidity as well. There is a huge threat of rain. This might be the only dry running they get all weekend.
Yeah, a lot of the drivers have been saying in the paddock as well, catching up with Evan David just prior to jumping into the commentary box. He was saying that they were fully expecting weather to come into play. Rain definitely confirmed to be heading into, well, race action that comes up later on today. Obviously qualifying, this is their only taste of dry weather here at this point. Brad Benavides slows up on the run in towards Ascari, so through will go Yevin David to then take the helm. So obviously this might be Brad Benavides looking for that slipstream here in this case. Obviously that will help him down the long straights when we factor in such the lengthy straight as is Monza, and also the run down through towards Kerber Alboreto as well. So you can forget about those initial purple sectors that Brad's put in. Obviously nothing representative here at this stage. So we watch David now make his way through the final corner, and he'll then make his way down towards the Rettifilo. This circuit had opened up back in 1922 and was the design gifted by Alfredo Roselli back then. Lap record held by Fernando Barrichello's father, Rubens Barrichello, believe it or not, in the Formula 1 2004 season where he was racing for the Ferrari team, and that occasion was a 1:21.046. I don't think we're going to quite jump on that time this time, but definitely some history there for the Barrichello family.
But the Euroformula lap record could well go if we do manage to get some dry running in the races, because 1:43.708 set by Freddie Lubin in 2022. But of course, since then, the circuit has been opened up massively. The big change to Monza, as I'm sure you will have seen, anybody who watched the Italian Grand Prix will have noticed how much flatter and wider a lot of the curbs out here are now. And that has just opened up the circuit. And in the GT series, we're lapping about 3 or 4 seconds a lap quicker. And so I'm sure that the Euroformula drivers will manage to take off a little bit of that lap time as well. As you see, we're already into 43.808, so almost matching the times from yesterday's session, and only a tenth away from the lap record pace. But of course, that was set in race trim. And so hopefully we do get some dry running that will give drivers an opportunity to challenge for that lap record. But yeah, it's interesting how many drivers are bunching up together here. You've got Francesco Simonazzi on his own. Garfias is somewhat on his own, as is Roman Rubicek and Fernando Barrichello. But everyone else is in a bit of a pack here, trying to get that slipstream, which I'm sure is going to be the story of the afternoon, because it's so powerful here. Remember last year, I think in one of the races, we had top 5 separated by about a second.
We've just blasted the fastest free practice time set by Jose Garfias. We've now entered the 1:42s with Brad Benavides registering the 1:42.874 to go to the top of the timing boards. But Vladislav Rybov only 39 thousandths behind as he crossed the line. He sets a 1:42.913. Yevin David currently third fastest with a 1:43.873. More to come from him, though, I'm sure. And not forgetting Francesco Simonazzi, who's a little bit further back. He's also in the 1:43s, but the latter 1:43s for now. There is Fernando Barrichello, the young Brazilian, who coming off the back of a fantastic weekend at Austria as well, where he would lay claim to his first win of the season. And didn't he do it in style? Wet weather conditions did not faze him. He was able to fight, determined, right to the bitter end, held the lead after losing it for a brief moment, took it back, heading in towards the Perth section, and then came back and stole the victory. There's his father, Rubens, who will, of course, be racing for Il Baroni Rampante this weekend as well. We'll be hoping that Fernando can pull off similar exploits as he did back at Austria. And if you remember correctly, like I said, wet weather conditions back then too, and they're returning here this time at Monza. It might favour him.
That was an incredible battle with Michael Shin back at the Red Bull Ring, wasn't it? Of course, Michael Shin not with us this weekend. Here's Francesco Simonazzi, that BVM Racing driver, only a tenth of a second away from the benchmark time in the first sector, and closing in a little bit in the middle sector there as well. So 2 personal bests so far on this lap, and there you can see how much they just monster the curbs through Ascari in particular. Now it's really made a difference. You used to have to dance on the limit of danger as you threaded the right front tyre towards the curbing, but you couldn't get up on it because it was too high. Now it is a much more simpler corner as Simonazzi around the Alboreto corner, the Parabolica, as many of us remember it as, And it is bucking and weaving on the straight a little bit, but Simonazzi goes second fastest, still 0.6 of a second away from Yevon David, who's done a 42.196. So the Sri Lankan is not wasting any time out there in his first qualifying session.
No, well and truly clear, and he's just puts in yet another personal best. He's not fastest, though, in the first sector, because Brad Benavides has taken that, as we now watch the cars make their way down in towards the Lesmo 1 and 2. There's Benavides now, man from the States, your Euroformula Open champion of 2024, joining the likes of recent years, of course, Ollie Goethe representing in the F2 Championship, Brad Benavides competing there not too long ago. And we'll obviously await to see what Brad Benavides decides to do with his career going forward. Obviously, many drivers have come out of the Euroformula Open and gone on to do great things. Obviously, no less, we've seen Liam Lawson get confirmed, as well as the new partner of Yuki Tsunoda at the RB team in Formula One. So yet another Euroformula driver will enter the grid as Brad Benavides on a purple lap makes his way down through towards Curva Alboreto. Still retains purple for now. Yevon David, as we've seen already consistently through the course of qualifying so far, swapping out, allowing Brad Benavides to run down out of Ascari, giving him that clean air. And now Benavides goes on the attack. Let's see if he'll topple Yevon David, and if so, by how much, as he now goes across the line. That's a 1:41, the first of the session, a 1:41.974, just over 0.2 faster than David in second place.
So Yevon David backed out of that previous lap, as we saw, and it looks like we're going to have two teammates racing on the way into the Rettifilo chicane, as that squabbling for position out there. Who was that? That was Jakub and Vladislav Ryabov, who also became a race winner last time out in Barcelona. This is only his second outing of the season and his third overall, and it's really great to see Ryabov at least finding some little consistency in his racing career. Of course, it's been a bit tumultuous over the last couple of years for young Vladislav, but proved in Barcelona that he has still got the pace to mix it up with the best in the junior single-seater ladder. They've still got these four cars in a queue, and Bergmeister, who's at the back of that queue, has sort of pushed his way forward. Simonazzi not messing around with any of that. He's all on his own out there going through the Lesmos at the moment, through Lesmo 2. And again, these two corners where you've got much wider exit curbs as well. The track limit sort of takes care of itself. It's really only at the chicanes and cutting through the chicanes where we need to be monitoring that. But it's not doing it so much on this lap. But yeah, you see, just as it goes over the bumps, almost porpoising a little bit there, like an early ground effect car.
Yeah, I think it's strange. I mean, for a flat circuit like Monza, you wouldn't necessarily expect to see it. But again, you can just see it just bobbing on the ground, obviously getting quite close to the base surface of the circuit. But it won't deter Francesco Simonazzi, who has now raced here on considerable number of occasions, especially here in the Euroformula Open Championship. I remember looking back at 2022, where he came together with Christian Mansell at the Ascari chicane, and Mansell's car was upended. Of course, Mansell was okay, and since then has gone on to Formula 2 as well, and has really come into his own, driving for the ART team. As we now watch Roman Rubacek, who recently debuted here in the Euroformula Open as well, representing the nation, the Czech Republic, flying through out of Ascari once more, representing in gold class as well, as he now hustles down through towards Curva Alboreto. Fernando Barrichello also moving his way onwards. Still personal bests being fielded. Rubacek finding a personal best of his own in the middle sector, and two personal bests being honed by Fernando Barrichello as well as they come through the final corner this time around. All eyes now as we see Rubacek, see where he manages to place his car. Obviously, looks like he might remain in P8 for now, but he improves from a 1:49 into a 1:48.366 with two green sectors in 2 and 3.
So Yevon David there retaking the top spot on that previous lap, and now tucking back in behind Benavides. Well, it might be too far away. No, he'll definitely be in towing capacity there, but it's Benavides now at the front of this four-car queue. They've been playing very nicely together so far during this qualifying session. I'm sure that Motorpark have had some sort of pre-arranged plan of who does pushes when and who yields for whom when. But Benavides comes up to the line. He's 300ths up on Yevon David's time as it stands, and as he goes across the timing line, it did not improve in the end. It was 0.3 for Benavides, so it didn't improve his personal best either. It was at 42 flat as opposed to a 41.9 on the previous lap. And of course now Yevhen David will have the slipstream, as well Vladislav Ryabov here in the 37, which is the slightly more white wing tipped car, the black helmet for the 18-year-old. Then Jakob Bergmeister, I think it is, back at the end of that queue. I'm dropping off from it slightly. But Yevhen David, you can spot with it. He's got the blue trim on his car and the very bright yellow and green.
You can't miss the helmet.
It's almost like Grello, like Manti Grello colours on that helmet, which is very cool.
Yeah, and it'll certainly help us when the wet weather comes down, I think, coming through the weekend. I think we might need it for the visibility as we now watch the cars once more making their way through Lesmo 1 and Lesmo 2. Purple first sector for Vladislav Ryabov this time, currently sat 6th fastest, 1:42.478. So the young man looking to pursue onwards. Yevhen David once again swapping out with Brad Benavides. Losing time though, Ryabov coming out of sector 2. So that would have been coming through the Lesmo section. Whether he got caught up perhaps in a little bit of traffic. It's purple though for Yevhen David, who's going to look to try and go even higher than he already has. Of course, Brad Benavides, and currently 3 tenths behind in P2. And David is going to look to extend that. He's green as you'd fathom. He's purple in that middle sector as we've seen. But now making his way around the final corner of Alboreto. Let's see how much more he can add to the deficit between he and Brad Benavides. Is it going to extend further? Higher than 3 tenths? It goes higher than 4 tenths. Very nearly 4.5 tenths faster, just over 4 tenths itself. Fantastic lap, 1:41.543.
Well, we've already had one debutant pole sitter so far this year in the form of Jose Garfias back at the Red Bull Ring. We might have a second one here because Yevhen David is absolutely flying out there. And it is very much on the run into the Ascari chicane where the swaps are happening. And these two have coordinated themselves very nicely, and they're the ones at the top 2 at the moment. Coming across a slow-moving Francesco Simonazzi here. His last lap was a 2:20. So he was really crawling around, or maybe he came into pit lane, but I haven't seen them bail out there. I think they are trying to get through this session on one set of tyres, which I'm not sure it's going to make much difference when the rain comes as well, because of course they'll be most likely on wets. Simonazzi's still going slowly around the lap here, and it's a slightly unusual schedule for the Euroformula this weekend because we have 2 races today and 1 tomorrow, as opposed to 1 qualifying and 1 race on a Saturday. Normally 2 races on a Sunday.
Yeah, Fernando Barrichello popping into 2nd fastest as well, just 4 tenths behind Yevhen David this time. Garfias has gone up to 3rd as well, and Brad Benavides has dropped down to 4th, but Benavides already now showing signs of purple again in the 1st and 2nd sector. Not as good in the 2nd sector as he was in the 1st. He did forfeit a bit of time, but he is still 6 thousandths up coming out of sector 2. A slight swapper coming through Kerber Alboreto. Let's see whether it's cost him anything at all. This will at the very least, I'm sure, pop him higher than Fernando Barrichello, but will it topple Yevhen David as he now crosses the line? Not quite. 75 thousandths off the top with 1:46 to go here in the session. Here comes Fernando Barrichello. He obviously looking to try and heighten his hopes as well. 33.891 coming out of sector 1, not green. Faster than the speed trap this time as well, Vladislav Ryabov. So it's anyone's game here at this stage, but there's a long golf to try and challenge Yevhen David so far.
Well, it's really interesting to see that these couple of cars that are not playing the slipstream game are at times able to get close to the front of the timing order here. And while Yevhen David and Brad Benavides are busy swapping and changing amongst themselves, but Barrichello is not on the best of laps here. Francesco Simonazzi is on a decent one. He's fastest in the 1st sector. We'll keep an eye on that as Barrichello does improve in time, but not in position. A 1:41.938 for the Brazilian. Let's see what... and Simonazzi's got a great toe as well behind Vladislav Ryabov. So he's going to be soaking that up all the way down the Seraglio straight.
Fantastic 1st sector as well.
Yep, purple in there. And so Benavides yields to Yevhen David. And, oh, that was a lot of time lost for Francesco Simonazzi in the middle sector. Not a personal improvement, and has a swapper in the middle of Ascari for good measure as well. He should get 1 more lap in. It's going to be a bit tight.
Yeah, I think so. Now heading down in towards Alboreto this time. Dying seconds on the clock, 15 to go. It's Yevon David on top, but only 75 thousandths divide he and our champion Brad Benavides as they now hustle down towards turn one. Jakob Bergmeister will cross the line shortly. He registers a 1:42.556. Can't move up from 7th fastest though, however. Let's take a look at a replay. Oh, a very aggressive run over the curbs coming through Ascari there from Simonazzi. I'm not sure whether that actually led to the time loss. It looked like that was much earlier in the lap, but nonetheless not an easy run there for Simonazzi. And he's got a bit of traffic to find his way through as well.
Yeah, theory might be that he ran too deep into the I think the second chicane, because that's where the timing split is. And if you go too deep into that, then obviously you'll trip the timing sensor a lot earlier. That's a slightly different strategy we've seen with Yevon David yielding into the second chicane, this time for Brad Benavides. So the Floridian won't have the toe down the Seraglio, and he'll be on his own out there now at the front of this field. And of course this time for Yevon David is basically lost now, as Garfias and Barrichello have crossed the timing line. They are 3rd and 4th respectively as it stands. The question is, can Brad Benavides on this final lap find those 75 thousandths of a second? He needs to deny Yevon David a debut pole position in the Euroformula Open Championship.
Yeah, it's all to play for here. Checkered flag is out. It'll all be one and done here in the dying moments. It doesn't look like Benavides is going to have enough in the locker to do it though. However, despite going green in Sector 1, he could not quite replicate it in Sector 2. And Brad Benavides, though, still recorded as purple on our time.
Yeah, he's up on David's time.
That's extraordinary. 27 thousandths better than where Yevon David sits. So there we have it. Brad Benavides with a late-in-the-day chance to take pole position. Can he do it? Yes! The champion has done it. Pole position for Brad Benavides ahead of racing this afternoon here at the Autodromo Nacional di Monza. What an occasion. The Floridian, at the very last chance of asking, manages to topple David, and he's clear by 1 1/4 tenths of a second.
4th pole position of the year for Brad Benavides. And yeah, that was a real last gasp effort there from the Floridian, wasn't it? So fantastic stuff. And he will have pole position for this afternoon's race.
Yeah, here are your classification results. We got Brad Benavides on top. He will take pole with a 1:41.418 ahead of debutant Yevon David in second. Gave a great account of himself for Team Motor Park. Jose Garfias in third, with Fernando Barrichello in fourth. Francesco Simonazzi in fifth. Vladislav Ryabov in sixth, with Jakob Bergmeister seventh, and Roman Rubicek in 8th place. So there we have it. What a lot of excitement, folks. We love to have grandstand finishes like that. Brad Benavides, late in the day, but it never comes too late, especially when it's pole position. A fabulous effort as we take a look at him rushing through the Ascari chicane. And what a season it's been for him, Chris. A momentous one as well to end the season at Monza, end the season as a champion.
Yeah, and of course the sad thing is that Brad doesn't really know where he's racing next year yet, or if he's going to be racing at all. And so we certainly hope that that will be the case. He will be racing because he's a wonderful young lad and has certainly proven that coming here in the Euroformula and working with teams like Motor Park, you can quickly build up on your skill level because Motor Park has turned around so many drivers' careers. So hopefully Brad will find a home somewhere, maybe somewhere in the GT Open, of course, where Euroformula shares the paddock with fellow GT Sport organisation run series. But Benavides parking up into Parc Fermé. I'm sure that one's going to feel quite good. He said it was sort of slightly miffed. He hasn't had more pole positions so far this year, but that was a cracker of a run to end on.
Certainly was. Brad Benavides will step out of the cockpit. Obviously, it's a weekend that won't necessarily mean too much in terms of the championship fight. That has all been signed and sealed, but still a pole position to end the season on. No doubt warm memories heading his way. It's been a long time coming. He's really started pushing his single-seater prowess here in the Euroformula Open, and ending on a high would obviously be ideal as he goes in to weigh in. Obviously, fantastic effort as well from Yevon David on debut as well, Chris. I mean, stepping in from F4 machinery, this is a very different beast, the Dallara 320. A lot more you can do with it, but he's definitely proven that he can hang with the more experienced drivers.
That's Yevon there. I think they're just debriefing on their slipstreaming
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. No worries. Is that no hard feelings? Very honorable. Much respect, bro. No worries. Fuck the Russian guy just fucked us over.
Oh, apologies. Apologies for Brad's language. This always goes wrong whenever we try and listen into the drivers, doesn't it? But yeah, respect between Yevon and Brad Benavides, and yeah, what a day for Yevon David.
Yeah, fantastic. Jose Garfias went third fastest, may have posted the fastest free practice time in FP2, but could not quite translate it to qualifying success. Yevon David, second fastest come the end of the session as well on debut. What a performance on part of him. But Brad Benavides is your fastest driver, and he's with Alfredo.
And here we are with the poleman at Monza for the last round of the 2024 Euroformula Open. And who is that? Brad Benavides.
Yeah, thankfully it's on pole this time. This is the fourth pole, luckily, of the season. Happy with it. It was drawn into the last lap of Qualy. So thankfully we had a good sync with our team, and we did a good work, and we were able to swap the positions correctly, because here the toe gives a massive, makes a massive difference. So the teammates were honorable, and yeah, we could secure that pole.
And of course it's Monza, always a special place, and you will want to win the race, one of the races, maybe two, maybe three.
We don't know if it's going to rain, if it's going to be dry. It's looking like it might be raining this afternoon, and maybe for tomorrow as well. But you know, Monza is a little bit of a casino, as they say here in Italy. So looking forward to it, and yeah, just having fun now.
Well done.
Well, if it was a casino, you hit the jackpot this season, Brad Benavides. Let's see if he can go on to victory this afternoon. Join us as we go racing later today.